You say the first rule of happiness is low expectations.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you're talking about, is comparison is the thief of joy because it just raises our own expectations, right? When with that, out the window goes our happiness.
Yeah. And it seems counterintuitive to people that if you want to be happy, for most people, it's if you want to be happier, you need to be ambitious. You need more. You need to make more money, work harder, have a more successful startup, whatever it would be. And that's true, but that's half the equation. The other half of the equation is keep your expectations low. So the gap between those two, it's the gap between those two that actually accrues to happiness over time.
How did you learn that?
I think there have been a couple little stories that really stuck out to me. One that I love that just knocked me on my ass the first time I read it was Stephen Hawking, the late physicist, who was, without exaggeration, one of the smartest people to ever walk this planet. He was just an absolute genius. And a quirky, of course, is that he had a motor neuron disease and he was paralyzed from head to toe. He had no control over his body. He spoke through a computer. Not a single muscle in his body could he actually control by himself. So he was, physiologically, it's one of the worst lives that you can imagine. And he did an interview with the New York Times a couple years before he died. And during the interview, he's talking about how happy he was and how amazing his life was. And the New York Times they asked him, they said, what is your secret to happiness? Like, if there's anyone who has the right to complain about life, it's that guy. And he's talking about how happy he was. And he said, my expectations were reduced to 0 when I was 21, which is when he got his disease. And he said, everything else since then has been a bonus. So this is like the guy whose life is like, has ended up in a way that most people watching that would say, like, that's among the worst scenarios you can imagine. And he's probably happier than you and I because his expectations were so low that just waking up in the morning and seeing the sunrise and getting to go to work and talk to people was this magical gift. I mean, you can imagine, not to get too morbid about this, but imagine you're on your deathbed and the doctor is very confident that you're going to die tomorrow. And then let's say that you make it one more day. What is that sunrise going to feel like? What's that, holding your wife's hand for one more day going to feel like? It'd be amazing just because your expectations were on the floor.